So, hello and welcome to another episode of Better Minneapolis. This morning I'm here with Soren Stevenson, council member for Ward 8. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So, it's been a while since we talked. I think it was before the election.
Mm-hmm.
So, you've now been the Ward 8 city councilor for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
How's it going? What have you learned? Have there been any surprises?
Yeah. Well, it's been a difficult 3 months, as everyone is aware. I started on January 5th, and as we all know, Renee Good was killed on the border of Ward 8 on January 6th. So it's been no rest for the weary.
Yeah, sure.
But this is the work that I signed up to do, so I'm happy to do it.
Well, maybe a little bit more than you signed up for, right? I mean,
But I guess this is Minneapolis, and we have earth-shattering events happen every 5 years. I hope 5 years from now that is not the case, but at least in these last few years, we can't catch a break.
But what about just like the day-to-day? Anything that has surprised you? I mean, even how to get to City Hall, anything like that? Anything interesting about the job that you didn't expect?
Yeah, little things. I live on Chicago, and I don't like to drive in traffic, so it's been honestly much easier than I thought and much more relaxing than I thought to take the bus into work in the morning. I've not really worked downtown before, and realizing like our transit system is actually quite good at moving people from the rest of the city to downtown.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's been a joy, just a small joy if that's what you're asking.
Have you found a place to eat lunch that you like or anything like that down there?
Yeah, I explore in the Skyway a little bit. Easy to get lost up there.
Do they have an app to help you get through there?
I think they do. I haven't used it because I don't want to go too far. I don't usually have a lot of time for lunch, so I'm not trying to go very far and then have to come very far back.
Yeah.
And it's not a street grid, and a lot of your readers, listeners, watchers will know this. It's not a street grid, so it's not exactly intuitive about how to get from point A to point B.
Yeah, I might do it again this summer. I've done co-working down there and tried using the Skyway, and it's kind of, you end up walking further than you expect, and then you find a sandwich shop or whatever, and you're like, okay, this is just going to be my thing. I want to walk 3 more blocks to find the next one. Well, so great. Yesterday was a big city council meeting, but before we jump into that, I know like in my direct neighborhood, we've had a lot of windows broken in cars, and I hear from a lot of neighbors just about I feel like the petty crimes or low-level crimes of breaking into garages, breaking the cars, stuff like that really make people upset, feel the livability of the city is down, and people complain about the police, they complain about City Hall, all this. I'm wondering what really can City Hall do to help stop these low-level crimes?
Yeah, that's a great question. So just a couple of last week, I believe, there was another spree of window breaking, the car window breaking, and also suspecting that the same people that did that were driving around and just shooting out of their car.
Oh, really? I hadn't heard that.
Yeah. I don't have any evidence that it was the same exact people, but the two things coincided at basically the same time. And that's what the inspector has told me that he thinks is what happened. So really, unacceptable stuff. You can't be shooting guns in the city ever. And you can't be just breaking windows for fun. I don't know if people had things stolen or not. When I've had my windows broken, they didn't steal anything. So that's happening. And what I've heard from the inspector, the 3rd Precinct inspector, is that that's where this happened this particular time. Is that oftentimes it's kids. It's like 13-year-olds, 13 to 15, 13 to 17, that sort of situation. And so the way that they go about it is it's hard to like narrow somebody down or people who are in this car, raging around doing this stuff, it's hard to narrow them down. So they have this way of calling all the officers in the city on duty to kind of try and triangulate them, as well as helicopters if they're available, and then try and grab them when they stop, in a parking lot or something. And that's been more effective than what they were doing in the past, but still it's difficult to actually get them. And then a lot of times what happens is when they get them, and if they are minors, which they very often are, then it's working with the parents about like, what's going on here? What's going on in the home that this is happening? And so they've had a fairly good success rate of when they get somebody, then going to the parents and working with the parents to have a different trajectory in life for this kid. The issue is that they're having a hard time actually getting the people who are doing this. And then it's just popular on TikTok and on YouTube I don't know if you've heard about this, but they have these, our keys are electronic now. They have these programmers where they can program a key and just
get right in the car
and
steal it. Yeah.
And that's another thing. Is like, why does YouTube and TikTok allow that? And like just let it go viral.
Teaches you
kids.
how to steal a car and
I understand our First Amendment rights.
I think you can learn how to put together a ghost gun out there.
Yeah. 3D print a gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the city, it sounds like the police have developed this swarm tactic. I guess what comes to my mind, and maybe there's some of this out there, and some of it's probably Hennepin County. Youth programming and stuff, and I know that it gets hard because you've got parks, you've got Hennepin County, you've got the city, so that's where I'm sort of like, there's a lot of overlapping jurisdictions of who might be able to really impact helping youth do something else. But what does the city do, I guess?
Yeah. This is another example of a place where I think this may be the county's jurisdiction, this may be the county's responsibility, but we're in a place now where the problem is so bad that more than one jurisdiction needs to take responsibility for the issue. I think homelessness is another example of this.
Yeah.
The county is the one who set out to deal with homelessness, but the county, while it's doing a lot of amazing work, obviously the issue is not resolved. And so to me, that says, okay, the state needs to step up and the city needs to step up. And when the problem goes back to being rare, then we can let the county take it over again. But so this is an example of something I think the city needs to step in with, at least now, while we have, this major issue. So I think something that is important to point out is during COVID, when everything shut down and all the youth supports and the community support shut down, immediately after we had a crime wave. We had serious problems in the city. And at the time, there was every incentive in the world to attribute that to defund the police. But in Minneapolis, we didn't defund the police. And so the way that I see it is that when all the community supports went away, particularly for young people, that left a lot of space and a lot of issues for bad things to happen.
Yeah.
And so to me, that says that the solution needs to be, we need to bring supports around for young people. In order to prevent this, we have to make sure that these kids, these 13 to 17-year-olds, they have something productive to do with their time. They have outlets for negative emotions, negative experiences that they have, in life that happens in our city.
Which, I struggle with that. Yes, the city can do some things, but the families really need to do some stuff too. Like if
Certainly.
they see their kids struggling, they need to, you want the resources to be out there for them to get mental health services or any other services they might need. And, I worry sometimes we rely too much on the city to try and fix these things, as opposed to just not making them worse, right? And having supports out there. But.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. And then the next step in that line of thinking is, okay, so the families aren't doing it. So what now?
Yeah.
And so I'm somebody who thinks like, okay, well, for whatever reason, these families, they don't know, they aren't able, they don't have the time. I don't know what it is. For whatever reason, it's not happening. So what do we need to do in order to follow up and make sure that it does?
Yeah, I mean, they could be working 3 jobs, you know.
Could be. Yeah, we don't know.
So, you know, one of the people that gets blamed a lot for what happens in the city is Chief O'Hara.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't been nominated yet, and we expect that's coming. And I feel like he gets, so for the people who are upset about the car windows being broken and all that, he gets criticized there for not doing enough, right? For especially with the youth crimes, and then, but also you have things like Operation Metro Surge, where he's getting criticized because people feel like he didn't do enough to, you know, maybe protect, you know, people who were protesting. So he sort of gets a lot of criticism from all over. And then, of course, there's these complaints that we don't really know what they are, but we just know that they exist. And so it's hard to judge whether or not there's merit. So with all that on the table, what's your thinking?
Mm-hmm.
Are you planning to support him when he's nominated? And if not, sort of, you know, what would the ideal police chief do that he's not doing?
Yeah. I actually have a meeting set up with him soon where we get to sit down and talk over how things are going, you know, the issues that, you know, Star Tribune has raised, these sorts of things. My priorities for the police chief is somebody who is going to continue the reform work that we know needs to happen, and somebody who's really serious about public safety. And those two things need to come together. I think it would be easy to find somebody who has one, but the both of them need to come together. So I'm not taking like some kind of official stance right now because I'm still in the process of having these conversations, and I want to talk more directly with the chief himself about this stuff. And so, yeah, I'm concerned about some of the things that have been reported about what's going on, and I've heard issues from rank and file, and I've heard issues from police accountability advocates. So I have a lot of concerns, and at the same time, if you're coming into the Minneapolis Police Department after the murder of George Floyd, and I assume if somebody was doing a really good job, they were serious about public safety and they were serious about reform, they would get a lot of heat for it. Now the question is, does that mean heat is a good thing or is heat a bad thing? And so, you know, I have some concerns, and you know, the Star Tribune, the media has raised a few things that are, you know, outside of work that or outside of like doing a good job and people not liking it. And so those, I need to discuss those with him. But I'm very serious about having a police chief who is A, accountable to the city, B, who's serious about reform, and C, who you know, really cares about our public safety.
When you say that he would be getting heat, where does that come from? What kind of heat do you mean? Like, you know, like I said, there's people who are upset that say like their windows are getting broken into their garages. There's, you know, those kind of things, and not to mention like shootings, and they want to see him maybe even take a harder line in terms of enforcing the law or really cracking down on this. But then, you know, I feel like there's another part of the city that's like, you know, maybe thinks he's not taking alternatives to policing seriously. And what comes to my mind is the community ambassador programs, the neighborhood safety type stuff. People have felt like that has been sidelined a little bit. So he gets heat from different people at various times. So what do you mean when you say that, like, if he was doing more, he would be getting heat?
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret that Minneapolis police after the murder of George Floyd, we had a serious need for reform, for change. And change inherently means that some people were doing something wrong and they need to stop doing it. And if we had a chief come in and address those things and stop those things from happening, you know, like the status quo of how the department was going would naturally push back against that. You know, whether it was like this person in this position is doing a bad job and they need to be demoted or fired, you know, then that person would be like, he's terrible, I hate him. So that's what I mean by like, we as Minneapolitans should expect that he would get pushback for doing the job right. The question we're asking now is the kind of pushback he's getting, is this because he's doing something right or is this because he's doing something wrong? I've been having conversations that are trying to parse those things out, and from what I can tell, it's a mix, but I need to sit down with him. I need to talk with him personally to understand really what's going on.
Okay.
And I have yet to do that.
So you're kind of in the undecided bucket then on his...
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Speaking about sort of these low-level crimes, the decriminalization of drug paraphernalia issue just came up, and I watched the debate around that, a lot of it. And by the way, did you ever expect that you were going to have meetings this long? I mean, I try and watch some of your meetings, and you know, like I have to go places, right? It's like I think it took 4 hours to talk about the drug. And this was in the main city council meeting. It already been talked about, I think, in the... Yeah. So, I mean, if you guys are working hard, that's for sure, you know, on these things.
Yeah, I did not expect that we would have meetings that go from 9:30 in the morning to 6 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
That's intense. Then we get a lunch break.
And maybe it changes, because I know you were on that, I forget what you call them, but the...
Committee of the Whole, Super Committee of the Whole.
Yeah.
Super cow.
So maybe work will go back to normal. But as far as the decriminalization, it seemed like some people were really afraid that it would be taken as a sign that open drug use was okay in the city, and other people were making the case that it's a health issue and people reuse needles and things like that. But then also it sounded to me like listening to the police representative or lawyer that it really doesn't play that big a role either way. And in terms of like, I think there was only 30 cases that had been where someone was cited and convicted or something of drug paraphernalia.
Yeah.
So given all that, I mean, how would you explain the issue to listeners? And because it passed, I think that they're going to now
it got tabled, so it's gonna because I'll get into why, but it got pushed to the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. So more conversations need to happen behind the scenes and I think in the next committee meeting, so that we can flush some things out. There were some things that some members of the body wanted to change, so it got pushed. It's not been approved or denied yet. But basically, what is it? What does it mean? Why are we doing this? Mm-hmm. First and foremost, it is not legalizing drugs, possession or sale of drugs. You cannot, in Minneapolis still, whether this ordinance goes through or not, you cannot possess or sell illegal drugs. So that's not what this is, and just want to be really clear about that. What this is possessing clean pipes, syringes, other paraphernalia of the way that those things get used. And why this is important is really from a health standpoint. We have in this city a resurgence of HIV and hepatitis C, and it's coming from sharing needles. That's where this is coming from. And so what we really want is we don't want HIV at all. We don't want hepatitis C at all. And we don't want dirty needles laying around the city. So what we want to do, and I did some of this work as a street outreach worker, is you bring they're called cleans. You bring cleans and a box, a syringe box, so that people aren't like, I have to hold on to this because I'm going to need it, tomorrow or whenever I plan on using next. And it's dirty because I've already used it. I'm now sharing it. I might drop it out of my pocket, these sorts of things. Instead of like, I've used it, I'm going to put it in the box, close it up, and it's in a safe place, and I have clean ones, and I'm not worried about like needing to reuse this one. So that's what it is. And what happens is that when people who are addicted to drugs and living on the streets, they're in a very precarious situation, obviously, and it takes a lot of trust building to understand that somebody is there to help them, to treat them with kindness, because a lot of people on the streets aren't treating them kindly. A lot of people who are not on the streets are not treating them kindly. And so there's a natural distrust. And so this is a really good way of A, promoting health in our city, but B, letting outreach workers build relationships with people, one-on-one relationships, so that when this person is like, I'm tired of this, I really want help, there's that relationship already built, and the person is healthy, that they can, no one's healthy if they're using fentanyl, but the person is not sick with HIV or hepatitis C, and they can go, okay, I'm ready for treatment, or I'm ready to get into a place, I'm ready to take my meds again, whatever it is. That's really important, and I've seen that firsthand, and so that relationship building is really important. And one other thing that I think is important to note is that the city and the county, and probably the state as well, but I know for the city and the county, we already pay groups to do this work. So we are currently paying people to go and do this harm reduction work, and we say it's illegal to have it. Right. So we're speaking out of both sides of our mouth right now. We know that it works from a health standpoint, and it's something that we're already doing, and we're charging people with crimes for doing it. And so, which is it going to be? Are we going to say, no, if you have this, you're going to jail? Or are we going to say, hey, this is a tool that we're using to get people off drugs and off the streets and make the city cleaner and safer? So I'm on the side of, we should use this as a tool to get people off the streets, off drugs, make the city cleaner and safer. That's what this is.
Where do, if they're not getting clean needles from a care group, where are they getting them? You can't just walk into a Walgreens and buy a box of needles, can you?
That's a good question. I don't fully know, but I imagine that if somebody really wanted to use drugs, that their dealer probably had some. I don't know.
Online, Amazon?
Yeah, you can probably Amazon them too. I don't know. But people were getting all these things before.
Yeah.
And now let's make them clean. Let's build relationships. Let's get people off drugs.
So why do you think there was such a reaction from people in the community about this particular issue? Because they didn't understand it, or because people definitely are upset because they're seeing groups using drugs out in the open, and I think there's the feeling that this is just one more way of telling them it's okay to do that.
Yeah, I think people are upset because drugs are terrible. Drugs are terrible. They do terrible things to individuals and to communities. And so I think people are upset because they want drug use to be gone forever. And I also want that. And so then there's differing opinions about how you go about doing that. There is the opinion of make it all illegal, crack down every time, and have specific units walking around arresting people every time they possess or use or are high. That's one train of thought. And then another train of thought is, well, we tried that. It didn't work. And so now we got to try something else. I'm in that camp of, we got to try getting people off drugs. We got to try getting supports for people that they don't feel the need and they have the information that they need to not use drugs in the first place. That's kind of where I'm falling. And I think people are right to be upset about open air drug use. Definitely. And this, by keeping this law in place as it is, it's not solving it, because it is currently illegal to have drug paraphernalia, and we're having this problem now.
Yeah. I found one of the people who testified, I found it pretty powerful. I want to say he was in charge of health services for the city. But, he just really emphasized how these drugs are not the drugs that, well, you're a little younger, but like people my age and older, like the drugs that we might have encountered in high school and stuff, like it's a very different game now. These are so much stronger.
Yeah.
It's really, I don't think it's a problem that, I think it's a problem that no one has really figured out a solution to, because they are so powerful, and people do become addicted so quickly. It's, but okay, thank you for that. I wanted to move on and talk about the Commissioner Barnette, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yesterday he was denied the nomination. I was a little surprised, and partly I was surprised because I don't know, I just would have thought that they had figured out who was voting for him before the meeting. But so it was a surprise, wondering what your thoughts on it are. I think you voted against him being renominated. And I've been a little surprised since it happened, is some of the reaction I've heard from people who read the newsletter and stuff. It was different than I kind of expected. So,
what was the reaction?
It was mixed. I thought that, obviously, I expected it to happen, but I heard from several people that were kind of like, well, they want more results, I guess, and they weren't impressed with the results so far. So, but what they consider results and what other parts of the city consider results might be completely different. But for this, they still felt like it wasn't happening. Whatever it was they wanted out of this department felt like it wasn't happening. And frankly, I think his salary bothers people. I think they feel like when you're getting paid that much, you need to be maybe more of a presence than he is in the media and in explaining to people what's getting done, whether it's with fire, the 311, the 911. So anyway, a mixed bag, I guess, of responses. But it wasn't, I had expected an overwhelming, can't believe the city council did that. And that's not the reaction that I saw, at least.
Well, that's interesting. I can tell you why I voted no.
Okay.
And so here are the two main things that went into my vote. The first is, you may or may not, if you watched, you may have seen me read from this letter that we got from AFSCME. And that letter, I think, played more importantly actually into the other two nominations than into this one. But in that letter, they ask, does this person, they're basically asking the workers of their boss, what do you think about your boss? And before you think, oh, all workers hate their boss, one of the people who got put up got glowing reviews.
Just to kind of explain that. So,
Yes.
AFSCME is the employee union for city workers.
It is one of them. Yeah, it's the biggest one.
And so there's a lot of union employees under Barnette and Kelleher.
Yes.
Right? And so they wrote a letter kind of with their recommendation about the nomination.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you for that. So with Barnette's, one part in particular was that they asked, does this person create a fair and inclusive work environment? And the answer was no, he doesn't do this. And they went on to describe issues with the chief and the way that the chief doesn't create an inclusive and a safe working environment. And then Todd Barnette is the chief's boss.
Yeah.
And so they're saying, well, he's not holding the chief accountable for acting erratically or acting in a way that's, counter to a safe work environment. And he's his boss. So what's going on here? That was something that really stood out to me. Another thing is that the commissioner is the one who's handling the budget, is the one who's directing the different public safety departments. And another question was, does this person understand your contract, like the union contract, and understand what's been negotiated? And what was written in there was, it's not clear that he understands, and it is clear that he doesn't care to understand. And that's really damning. Mm-hmm. Like this is a contract between you and the workers. And by you, I mean you, Todd Barnette, the mayor, the chief of police. Like this is who the contract is with. It's with those people and the workers. And to not know or care about what it says is really bothersome for hundreds of workers in the city. And so, that maybe this doesn't play as large for other people. It plays large for me because I think in order to have our city services done well, we need workers who are feeling respected and who are ready to show up to work and work hard. It's hard work to do violence interrupter work. It's hard work to be a police officer. It's hard work to pick up your trash. It's hard work to fill potholes, do all this stuff. This is hard work. So our workers need to feel like they can show up to work, do their work, and that their boss respects them at a minimum. So that played really heavily to me, is that the workers who work underneath Barnette did not give a good review. They actually had negative things to say. So that was something that played really heavily. But this is something that I think plays very, very heavily for me. And that is that last year, the Minneapolis Police Department spent $20 million over their budget, and the fire department spent $7 million over their budget. And there were things that made that happen, but here's the kicker. He didn't know until the end of the year that was happening. So you're in control of a department, the most high-profile department of the city, and you don't know that they're overspending $20 million? Yeah. What? That's really serious. And so when I asked him, I was like, how did that happen? He basically said, I don't know, it just kind of did. And then, he wanted to say, and we're going to do this to make sure it doesn't happen again. And we really hope it doesn't happen again. That would be bad, right? This is not good. I mean, those $20 million, that isn't just, monopoly money that got spent and we're all fine. We're having services cut this year because of the spending last year. So there's these trauma response services for domestic violence, for victims of shootings, for, different things. Those services initially got cut because of this overspending. And so I think if we were going to have overspending, and there's, some valid reasons why we were going to, we needed to know before it got to the end of the year, because it literally was the end of the year. And then it was like, oh, we don't have the same budget that we thought we had. And that's why there's been a lot of issues.
Yeah,
so
it seems like the council was taken by surprise, and that, if it was building, and I think now they've changed, right? He's going to have quarterly budget meetings and figure that out. But, and what is the overall police budget? Is it 220 million?
I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, so I don't know the exact percentage of how much 20 million is. But what I can tell you is that it's had a major effect on our budget this year.
Right.
And again, this is not particularly about the overspending itself. It's the fact that he didn't know there was this overspending. And the COO, Margaret Anderson Kelleher, she also didn't know about this overspending. And that's a big problem, because these are the people who are at the top of our city. They're the ones who are part of crafting and managing the budget, and they don't know about major overspending in a very high-profile department. This is a really serious issue. We expect we expect us to at least know where our tax dollars are going.
Do you feel like the mayor or his team made an outreach effort to the council to kind of figure out where people were at and what concerns they might have about Barnette before the vote took place? Or
I had a little bit of outreach. Like I got a call from the mayor on Monday, I
okay,
think. Um, and each of the department heads in the last 3 months, I had met with them. Part of that was getting to know each other, and then part of that was, uh, them making their case why they wanted the job again.
so it's a little unclear if he vetoes it what it means. Like, if I guess it's up in the air, right? And the city legal team is looking at it like if he because it still seems like there needs to be a positive vote to confirm the nomination. So it doesn't seem, at least in my understanding of what I've read, veto still doesn't get him to a confirmation. Is there anything at this point you feel like Barnette or Fry could do or change that would, get him the 9 votes, or at least, I don't know what is going to be proposed, whether it's going to need 7 or 9 votes, but is there anything that can be done at this point to save to make it a positive confirmation?
I think there are. I know there's conversations happening behind the scenes. I'd like to see the mayor come and propose somebody who he knows can get passed, somebody who he knows is going to do the job really well. And I want to be clear. I don't think that Todd did the job well enough to get it back. That's my position. Sorry, Commissioner Barnette did it well enough to get it back. So that's my position on that. This is a really important role. I will say he was also, currently is, the highest paid employee in the city. He makes over $300,000. So, if you're like, Soren, I don't think your reasons are very good. Yeah, there was some overspending. Yeah, the employees are unhappy. He gets paid over $300,000. I got high expectations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see some really good results. So
if only the CEOs of our corporations were held to that same standard, right?
Yes.
So, all right. Well, thank you for explaining that to me. I want to talk a little bit about budget and development because it does play into this. If money, and it does seem like the overspend was a big check mark against him, and one of the reasons that he wasn't approved. But so now, what happens this year with the budget? Are there ways that, and it's kind of a twofold question because there's spending. How do what can you do on the spending side to decrease, what's spent? But then I know there's, and I'm sorry, I'm not sure if you were part of that BET meeting where they discussed different ideas for the revenues, and there was a presentation. So what do you see as being the topics that will be discussed going forward, like in terms of how do we reduce the spending, and then how do we increase revenue without increasing property taxes?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in terms of spending, we have an audit coming out about basically the efficiency of our government, our city government.
And is that being done by like city auditor's office?
City auditor, yeah.
Okay.
So they are going to be putting out this report, I believe, next month. Don't quote me on that, but I heard from Council President Payne that it's coming out soon. Okay. So I'm interested to see what's in there. I hope that they have just solved all our problems. Well, if you just cut this, everything will be fine. Of course, that won't happen. But yeah, I'm interested to see what's in that and see how we can better use our tax dollars now and make efficiencies in our government. So I'm really interested in that. The other thing is that amongst peer cities, or at least amongst comparable cities that this group went out and looked at, Minneapolis significantly over relies on property taxes for its income as opposed to other cities. So we were presented at the BET, Board of Estimate and Taxation. We were presented there with basically 5 different ways that we could alternatively raise revenue that's not property taxes. And they ranged from like very small amounts of revenue to very large amounts of revenue. And they're discussed like the path to get them passed. Would they be progressive or regressive? Would they, how much money would they raise was one of the categories.
And I think that report's online and available for people who are interested, right? If they wanted to go see that?
I think so. I don't know where it is online. They gave me a paper copy.
Okay. I think there's a link in LIMS.
Okay.
Maybe I'll research it for the newsletter and put it in there for people who are interested.
People should read it. It's very interesting. The major block is that basically all of the good ideas in there, the state legislature would have to give approval, and then likely voters would have to give approval. So there's a long path,
difficult path.
Before we could get there. But I think that we should get there on at least some of these ideas. During the campaign, I talked about a city income tax on high wage earners. I think that would be important. That was the one that was going to bring in the most amount of money. But there's other things in there like real estate transfer tax.
Didn't they? There's a little offset, but I think the state just proposed that
Income
a
tax
high income tax
for cities.
For people just in the whole state, right? An income tax. I think
The city had, sorry,
it's
the
in
state.
the committee, the tax committee.
Okay.
Like yesterday.
Oh,
I
okay.
think. So.
I wasn't aware. Yeah, I mean, it's no secret. I think that we should have a very progressive tax system.
And I think, and I've talked to Eric Bernstein about this when I interviewed him, and I liked his approach, which is it needs to be more regional. If you were going to do something like that, than just the city, and maybe if they can get it done on the state level, but it's going to be a hard climb.
Yeah,
I think.
I think it would be valuable. I think that Eric may have talked about this, or he and I have kind of discussed this. If it was regional in terms of the 7-county metro, and this high income tax rate was raised through the whole 7-county metro and then distributed to cities and counties based on per capita, I think that would be great.
Because it's my understanding that there's a lot of city budgets that are a bit out of whack right now. Yeah. It's not just, say, Minneapolis. But so given some of that, what do you think the city can do to make this an attractive place for businesses to come and set up shop and to bring more jobs? And because this recovery's been slow since the last 5 years, and so are there any tools you think in the city toolbox to kind of kickstart things? I mean, I hear people talk about maybe there being too many regulations, or hoops you have to jump through to start a business. What are your thoughts? What tools do we have to make it a attractive place to set up shop?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. One, something that I heard a lot during the campaign, and that I think I've heard the mayor talk about more recently, so I'm interested to see where his administration wants to go on this, is that a lot of small business owners or prospective small business owners, they say, oh man, getting from the process of, hey, I want to do this thing, to you have the licenses and permits to do it, is beyond tedious. Like, it is incredibly hard to do, and it doesn't have to be that way. I literally had somebody say to me, who was setting up a business in Minneapolis, the only reason I'm doing this is because it was a turnkey situation. Like, everything was set up. They just needed somebody to come in and do it. Otherwise, I would never do business in Minneapolis again. And that's a real concern. That's a real concern. And so I think that's something really important for us to look at. I think actually the audit committee could do a good job, or not the committee, the auditor's office could be a good place of like, okay, can you look at our system and tell us like where are the major roadblocks, where are people getting stuck, and what are other cities doing where they're getting the health and safety and taxation stuff that they need, but also businesses are starting up in a reasonable amount of time.
I feel like there was talk, and maybe this program's in place, of some sort of like ambassador, where if I'm going to do a business, I go to the ambassador and I say, this is the business, and they kind of help you navigate all the different channels in the city. Am I thinking of a different city, or does Minneapolis have that?
I'm not sure if Minneapolis has that right now, but what I can say is that it is not yet working. So maybe there's more investment that needs to happen. Obviously, based on my answers, I haven't looked into this too deeply yet, but I just know that it's something that has been asked of me and something that that we should focus on. So that's one way. But another way is we need more incentives for empty storefronts to get filled. Like, I mean, just in Ward 8, but really, looking at uptown, looking at downtown, looking all across the city, there's a lot of storefronts that are sitting there that have been vacant for a long time. And for whatever reason, the economics of, I'm just going to keep it vacant until someone will come in and pay $9,000 a month rent. That works for me. Well, it doesn't work for the community to have a large vacant storefront. So we need incentives for people to fill those storefronts. There's something that's going on. If you walk around in Uptown, you'll see this. There's this Vibrant Storefronts program. There's a little sticker on the window. And that's paying rent for some kind of, I think it's arts organizations for a couple of years to liven up a place and see if they can get going on their own after that. But there needs to be more. Something that I really want to see, and unfortunately this needs the legislature, and it's been in process for many years now. It's called a land value tax. Basically, like, you're not taxed based on, and this would be like in Uptown, downtown, and whatnot, and Lake Street, at least to start. You're not taxed based on what your building is worth. You're taxed on what your land is worth. And so, on Lindale, for example, by the Wedge Co-op, there's that defunct car wash.
I'm going to say I've seen it. I can't picture it right now.
Well, how about this? You've seen a defunct car wash in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
There's more than one.
Okay.
Those defunct car washes, they're sitting there with the owner of the land saying, I'm going to sit on this until someone comes and pays me $2 million to build on it. I'm not going to run a car wash. I'm not going to run anything. I'm just going to sit here with this. That's unacceptable. Cities are for people. Cities are for places for people to live and people to work. And so we need to be having incentives, carrots and sticks, to get people to get owners of vacant land and owners of vacant building to say, okay, I actually really want this thing in use because I need that revenue coming in. So that's something I'd really like to look at.
One part of that that I've heard is in terms of, maybe it doesn't apply to the car wash situation, but maybe more of the buildings with retail and stuff, is that sometimes the owners, they have to pledge some of their own money, to purchase the building. And so, like, if it's, say, half a loan and half their own money, if they accept a lower rent, what happens is then the value of the loan and stuff is written down, and then all of a sudden they actually have to put in more money, or they are at risk of losing the money that they've already put into the property when they do that. So, that to me seems like a complicated way, situation to solve, because obviously you want lower rents so that people are in there, but you also don't want people to go bankrupt.
So something along these lines is, the old Victoria's Secret in Uptown that has been sitting vacant for 8 or so years. It's this massive, massive area. I'm not saying, don't accept $20,000 in monthly rent. I'm saying break it up into 20 smaller things. Maybe 20 is the wrong word, but break it up into
Yeah.
smaller chunks so that this person rents it for 5,000, this person for 1,000, this person for 3,000. Do it that way so that, okay, ideally this would be one large store, but we're just not getting one large store. Let's get 5 stores instead. Something like that.
Like a Mercado situation.
Yeah, like a market or a mall or something like that. And
I keep hearing. I mean, it's I like the idea, but I don't know why it doesn't happen. I mean, I feel like I've heard it from numerous people. Even maybe the mayor's talked about it. But I don't know. Hopefully, some of these things play out soon.
yeah.
So speaking more about the city budget, I also watched the debate about the police, or it's not just police, the Community Safety Training and Wellness Center.
Yep.
And there were a lot of, I think, and this is why the debates are like 6 hours long. There was a lot of interesting perspectives on it. It felt to me that there was general agreement, or at least a majority agreement on the council, that the timing was bad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that played into Barnette's being, not getting the nomination, but to bring forward a big price tag item like that, I think shocked some people.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that you said, and also, and then Osman had some other things to say I thought were interesting, was that one, if the city takes over that property, it's no longer tax generating, right? It becomes city owned. And then Osman brought up, and I don't know if this comes in that city auditor report you talked about, how much property the city already owns,
Mm-hmm.
and why they couldn't sell it or use one of the other owned properties for this place. What other what's your general feeling on the training center? Is it needed? This just isn't the right time. This isn't the right place, or is it not needed and the money would be best spent elsewhere?
Yeah.
Where you sit on that?
Yeah. So what I said, and what I still think, is that when we look at where are our biggest priorities and what do we need to spend our money on, we are looking at housing problems, homelessness, affordable housing issues. We're talking about public safety issues, police reform, and we're talking about livability, environment, climate change. These 3 things are really important. And then in Ward 8, I think George Floyd Square is an obvious 4th, which is important.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe in Ward 10 up by Lake Street, the new Nicola, the old Kmart site. I think that's a really important thing.
I don't want to take you off topic, but I just read yesterday that the bid is going to Trellis, but they're not going to start construction for several years, and it seemed like they still have to get some sort of funding.
Oh, really?
I don't know. So I was a little disappointed to hear that. I was like, another 2 years on this site? So it's just going to be rubble for another couple years before they get started?
Yeah, I didn't see the timeline about when they said they were going to get started with construction, but that's disappointing to hear. But I'm glad you bring that up, because when I'm thinking about what are our priorities, we can only spend on certain things and we can only borrow on certain things. So in a certain way, this is a zero-sum game. You choose one thing or you choose another thing.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm talking to the people in the 5th Precinct, when I'm talking to neighbors near Lake Street, when I'm talking to people around George Floyd Square, Bancroft, Bryant, Central, and really when I'm talking to anybody who drives or walks or bikes like north in our city, whether you're in Kingfield, whether you're in Field, whether you're in Regina, these places, homelessness is what I hear. I hear people saying this homelessness situation is out of control. If you ever go to Cedar and Hiawatha, oh my God, you're just like, we have failed as a society. And Minneapolis is not unique in this issue. It is all over, but Minneapolis is not, solving the problem. So to me, when I hear about public safety and housing, I hear about, we got to do something about homelessness situation. And so when I think about where should we spend $40 million, whether it's like money we have or whether it's money we're borrowing, I think we got to do something to address homelessness. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people, well, what was being like said about that was, well, those are operating dollars, not capital dollars. But you can build a building. We could build a building with capital dollars. And so that's what I want to see us spend our money on. And I also want to see us spend our money on something that's going to expand the tax base. Because what we're seeing right now is we're seeing our tax revenues go down and we're seeing our spending go up. And that's a recipe for disaster. And so that either means our property taxes are going to continue to really steeply climb, or we're going to start seeing service cuts. And I heard loud and clear from people that people already feel like the services they're getting are diminished. Mm-hmm. And so how could we go diminishing more? So all that said is I think investing in something that's going to expand the tax base is really important. And it's not just some idle plaything about like, this is, what's going on? Sorry, there was a sound in the room.
Expanding
the tax base is really important. And then when I'm thinking about like, okay, we're going to be spending / borrowing $40 million, basically at a minimum $38 million, but $40 million, is this our number one priority? I just don't think this is our number one priority. Mm-hmm. I think a new training and wellness facility is a fine thing to want. And I think there's other ways we can go about it. There are other facilities in the county alone that MPD could look at going to for certain training activities. We could also reach out to Hennepin County. Hey, do you want to split this with us? There's other cities, there's other municipalities that we could go to and say, okay, let's share the burden on this thing. And all of that being said, it doesn't have to be in the city of Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. Like learning how to shoot, you can do that outside of the city. I learned how to shoot outside of the city of Minneapolis.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was one of my big questions, and I haven't researched it yet, is like the timing on this. Why now? Why this particular property? Mm-hmm. Those were some of the questions that I had about it. Mm-hmm. And I recognize that it's not over yet, right? It was like sent back to
staff.
So it would be good if they do answer some of those questions. Like, does it have to be in the city? Does it have to be this property? What's so special? I mean, because they made it seem like this was a red hot deal. I don't know if that's true or not. You know? So
it's a red hot deal, and I hope that a tax producing entity buys it and makes it red hot for our tax base. That's what I want. I think there's other ways that we could do this more efficiently, and I think there's a better time for us to do it. At a time when we're seeing revenue go down and spending go up, and at a time when we have other really serious needs in the city, it's just not the time. And I want to clarify, it's not going to be the time in the fall either. These trends, we need to see a reversal of some of these trends before we can really start considering something that, to me, is a nice to have, not a need to have.
Well, that sort of makes me think about my next topic a little bit. Like this adult bathhouses ordinance that I think you're a co-author on. Is that needed right now? What's kind of, maybe you could explain what the ordinance does, because I think it, am I right, it puts us in line with the state law, or was that the
paraphernalia? That was the drug paraphernalia.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what is this? I understand, I think we used to have it in the 80s here, and why now?
That's a great question. So what this is a continuation of our previous council member Andrea Jenkins' work. And so when I was running for city council, people will know I ran in 2023 and 2025. Both times, people across ideological spectrums in the city, they were very explicit with me. Soren, if I'm going to vote for you, you are going to continue to do trans equity work and LGBTQ rights work. That's just an absolute expectation. So this is something that my predecessor, Andrea Jenkins, has been working on, and it didn't get across the finish line before she was done. And so I'm one of many, picking this up and saying, okay, we're going to keep shepherding this along. So this isn't coming out of nowhere. I didn't start in January and say like, aha, this is the thing that I'm going to do. What I did say is, starting in January, okay, this is something that's carrying over from last time. My predecessor was working on it. Ward 8 asked me to continue this work, and so I'm going to continue working on it.
Because I got the impression in the meeting that there was some sort of petition that had been sent to Payne.
Yes, so there had been some petition, and by petition I mean there had been some like organizing in the community, people saying, hey, this is a thing that we're working on and we think it's good for this, and this reason, please do it. So there had been that. But really, the biggest drivers for me behind this is the Aliveness Project. A lot of people might know them. They're at 38th and Nicollet. They do healthcare for the LGBTQ plus community. Particularly, they have the goal, the vision of ending HIV. And so they came to me, they came to the other authors and said, this is something that we want to do because we know that this type of sexual activity is happening, but it's happening in the shadows. And this is a place where HIV is spreading. Mm-hmm. And so what we want to do is we want to bring this out of the shadows so that people like us, the Aliveness Project, other advocates for health, for public health and sexual health, can be in these spaces and help people get access to preventative services, to the healthcare that they need in order to benefit our health. This ban came about in the late 80s, much in like the AIDS epidemic and in the really retaliation against gay culture becoming more of a public thing. And so now we're reevaluating. Maybe this was good back then, maybe this was what was needed, but now we're seeing maybe something else. Maybe now that we understand, okay, it's okay to be gay, it's okay to be different, and it's okay to love who you want to love. Now we need to reconsider our rules. There's certain really stigmatizing language in there about like high-risk sexual activity that is not in a line with what we think now, just in general in society. So two things that we're doing. We're cleaning up old language so that we're not having stigmatizing language for our LGBTQ plus community in our code, and we're providing the legal framework for if somebody did want to do something like this, where there could be public health advocates, supplies, resources.
Right.
There.
It seems like it would need a good deal of regulation, right?
Yes.
And I mean the reason they were shut down in the 80s, I think, had a lot to do with people it's kind of like COVID. People were just terrified. Mm-hmm. They didn't really understand how to stop this disease. Mm-hmm. And when it was identified that, the bathhouses and stuff were contributing to it, then they shut them down, right? And I'm sure there was probably some component of anti-gay, but I think there's also just a lot of fear of the disease and spread. Just like, there was, some people would argue some overreach with COVID, right? With keeping the schools closed, stuff like that. But, what impression do you think, though, it gives to other people who might be looking to live here in the city? If it's like, oh, okay, we've got bathhouses, we've got, THC stores, and, I wonder, like, what's the vision for what we're hoping to attract to Minneapolis? Like, what, and this is, maybe a kind of a whole community type question, really, is like, how do we see ourselves? It's like, to me, it's just not clear. It's kind of all over the place. It's like some people very in favor of family friendly. You know, more people think of it as an arts town. You know, some people are more focused on the real estate aspect of it, and so I think a lot about, like, when I talk about attracting business and stuff. I mean, sure, there's regulations, but there's also like, well, what's the reputation? What do people think of when they think of Minneapolis, right? Um,
That's a really interesting question, and I wish more people were asking that exact question. Here's where my mind goes when you ask that question: is what kind of town is New York City?
mm-hmm.
Is New York City a financial town? Yeah. Is it a media town? Yeah, it is. Is it a food town? Yeah. Is it arts? Yeah, it's a lot of things. Now, New York City is very different. We'll never be New York City. But when you look at cities similar to us, what makes a city is that it's not one thing. You can have a mining town. That's a town where everyone does mining. Mm-hmm. But in a city, you know, you work in health insurance, right?
I used to. Yeah.
You used to, yeah. So you used to work in health insurance, and I do organizing, and other people work at Target, and other people work in food, and you know, like, a city is many things. So I'm really glad you're asking that question, because I think that's super important for the financial health of our city, and here's why. The reason why is because the more we have different things, the more we have interest and intrigue in our city of, oh, that's different, that's not for me, that's different, that's not for me, that's different, and it is for me. You know, the more you have that, and the more people are seeing themselves in this city, the more there's a business scene here for me, there's an art scene here for me, there's a education scene here for me. The more that people see Minneapolis as a place where that's a place for me, the more we get people moving in, the more people want to stay, the more that you get interesting ideas and businesses. And so I'm glad you bring this up, because I think having a conversation about what is our city for is a really interesting conversation for how are we going to get out of the financial situation that we're in, and how are we going to keep property taxes more stable, and how are we going to have a really livable, a really interesting place to live. So I think the viewers, I think me, we should be asking this question about what is a city for? And can we curate the city in such a way that we will get one thing? Or do we set up the city in such a way that we can get a great many things? Mm-hmm. That's kind of how I think that we should have a city where you can see yourself here. And the city needs all kinds of kinds. And I think that's going to set us up to be really resilient. You know, like, you have this industry and this one and this one. This one fails, well, the whole city doesn't fail because there's all this other stuff.
I mean, would that include like a red light district, sort of like an Amsterdam style thing, or no?
Well, this is not legalizing sex work. I just want to be really clear about this. This is not legalizing prostitution. What this is this is providing spaces for events that are already happening, like sexual events that are already happening in the shadows, to be out, not like in the open, but to be regulated, mm-hmm. to have some kind of controls over, okay, if you're going to do this, there needs to be resources available for people to engage safely, to prevent the spread of disease, to get access to greater community and resources. This is not legalizing prostitution. That's not what this is.
Okay. I have two final questions, if I can keep you going. Or
I'm going to have to head out here in just a little bit.
Okay. So, last two. Are we doing enough for rental assistance for the Operation Metro Surge? And then quick update on George Floyd Square. Those are my last two questions.
Okay. I'm going to have to be brief on both of them. Even though both of them deserve maybe a half hour each.
You've been very generous with your time.
Yeah, thank you. Briefly, are we doing enough? No, I don't think we're doing enough. I think the need is on responding to Operation Metro Surge, particularly mm-hmm. on rent and housing issues. I think the need is massive. The city is not doing enough. Is the city doing as much as it can? I think we probably could do a little bit more, but we have done $3.8 million in rental assistance. We've done $7 million in small business assistance. We attempted to do a 60-day eviction notice, temporary extension. They did the same thing in St. Paul. It passed unanimously. Um,
But I think hers gonna.
she didn't sign it, but it passed.
Yeah.
So
And
just like here,
that's coming back, but it's going to be 45 days now, right?
there's some talk about seeing 45 days, but we have to see, if the mayor is going to be on board. He vetoed 60 days. Is he on board with 45? I don't know. So that's what we have done. I'm proud of each of those three things. I wish that the 60 days, the temporary extension, could have gotten passed. It didn't. So I'm not going to say that that's enough because the need is so massive, but I'm proud of those things. So that's one. And then two, on George Floyd Square, reconstruction on the street is starting in June. It's starting in early June. There's some open houses coming, I believe, next week. You can find it on the city website, or it'll be in my newsletter. People should sign up for my newsletter. That's how you get a lot of city updates. The People's Way property, I think that we're close to having a decision about who's going to develop it. I'm really excited about that. I've been having some conversations with the mayor about moving that forward. And there's a new business opening in George Floyd Square. It's called Big L's Soul Food and Steakhouse. It's in what used to be, it was an Asian restaurant. I don't remember if it was Chinese or whatnot. But it was that, and then it was going to be a Black and Jewish restaurant, never opened, and then it was briefly a cafe, and then that shut after just a couple of months earlier this year. Now this is opening up. It's a food truck that's moving in and having like an actual brick and mortar.
Okay.
So people should check that out. April 18th, it's opening. I'll be there. I'm really excited.
Great. Well, thank you so much for all your time today. There's a lot to cover in the city. You've certainly been tasked with having to do a lot of homework and research a lot of issues in the first 3 months. So, maybe we can catch up again in the fall when the budget comes out and kind of talk about that some more. So
I would like that.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.